The mud-splattered pickup rolled through NATO's elite boot camp gates, and every head turned not in respect, but in contempt. Olivia Mitchell stepped out in second-hand boots, while recruits snickered behind cupped hands. Within hours, they'd stolen her map, smeared grease on her bunk, filmed her stumbling through obstacle courses. Lance Morrison shoved her into the mud and whispered, "Go home, charity case." But when she looked up, her eyes held something that made his stomach twist, a stillness that didn't belong to victims. It belonged to survivors. Before we go further, hit that subscribe button and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from, because I want to see how far Olivia's story travels. Now let's begin. The first punch came on day 3. Lance Morrison waited until Olivia was halfway up the rope climb, hands slick with sweat, shoulders screaming. Then he bumped the rope. Hard. She fell 8 feet, landed flat on her back. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Just lay there staring at the sky while her ribs tried to remember how to expand. "Oops," Lance said. "Guess some people just aren't cut out for this." Laughter rippled through the group. Madison Brooks' blonde, perfectly postured daughter of a 3-star general examined her fingernails without looking up. "Someone should tell her there's no participation trophies here." Olivia lay there for 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then she stood up, brushed the dirt off her pants with hands that didn't shake, walked back to the rope. "Mitchell," Sergeant Davis called. "You need medical?" "No, Sergeant." "You sure?" "Yes, Sergeant." She climbed the rope again. Slower this time, all the way to the top. Her palms were bleeding through her gloves when she came back down, leaving dark spots on the hemp. Lance watched her with his mouth half open, somewhere between confusion and irritation. That's when Elena Rodriguez knew something was wrong. Not wrong with Olivia, wrong with everyone else. Elena had grown up in East LA with 3 brothers who'd done time. She knew how to read violence before it happened. And watching Olivia stand up from that fall, watching her climb with bleeding hands and dead calm eyes, that wasn't submission. That was choice. "You see that?" Elena muttered to Chen, her bunkmate from Iowa. "See what the charity case eating dirt? The way she fell. She tucked, distributed the impact. That's trained." Chen looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "You're reading too much into it." Maybe. Or maybe everyone else was reading too little. That night in the barracks, Madison made her move. She waited until lights out, until Sergeant Davis had done bed check. Then she slipped out of her bunk and crossed to Olivia's holding an energy drink can. Elena watched through slitted eyes from 2 bunks over. Madison bent over Olivia's neatly made bed and dumped the entire can onto the pillow. The liquid soaked through, instantly spreading dark and sticky across the white pillowcase. Behind her, 3 other girls stood watching: Sarah Kim Rachel Hartley and Jessica Norton. "Oops," Madison whispered, not bothering to be quiet. "Looks like someone had an accident." Olivia's bunk was in the corner. In the darkness, Elena couldn't see her face. For a long moment, nothing. Then Olivia sat up. The motion was so smooth it didn't make a sound. One moment horizontal, the next vertical, sitting on the edge of her ruined bunk, with her hands folded in her lap. She looked at Madison, at the empty can, at the soaked pillow. "You got something to say?" Madison challenged. "Or are you just going to cry about it?" Olivia stood. She was shorter than Madison by 3 inches, lighter by 20 pounds. She pulled the pillowcase off, walked to the bathroom, rinsed it in the sink, wrung it out with methodical efficiency, came back, remade her bed with the damp pillowcase, lay down, closed her eyes, never said a word. Madison stood there for 10 seconds with her mouth half open like she'd been robbed of a punchline. Then she laughed too loud, too forced. Whatever. She's not worth it anyway. But as she walked back to her bunk, Elena saw something in Madison's face that hadn't been there before. Fear. Because people who responded to cruelty with cruelty, you could predict them, control them. But people who absorbed it without reaction, who chose not to engage those people, were either broken or dangerous. And broken people didn't move like Olivia Mitchell did. The next morning, at 0500 hours, they ran 5 miles through terrain NATO had designed to break bodies and minds. 2-mile uphill sprint, uneven ground studded with rocks, 3 water crossings with currents strong enough to knock you off balance, half-mile of soft sand that turned your legs into concrete. Lance finished first. Madison third, Elena 8th. Olivia finished 11th out of 40 recruits. "Not bad for a charity case," Lance said as she crossed the finish line. "You managed to buy those running shoes yourself, or did they come from Goodwill too?" A few people laughed. Most were too exhausted to care. Olivia bent over, hands on her knees, breathing hard. When she straightened up, her face was flushed and completely expressionless. "They came from a sporting goods store in Ohio. On sale, $28. The specificity of the answer, the absolute lack of shame in it, made Lance's smile falter. "Cool story," he said, and walked away. But Elena had noticed something else. Olivia's breathing had normalized in under 30 seconds. Heart rate dropped back to baseline almost immediately. You didn't get that kind of recovery from running track in high school. You got it from years of conditioning, from training that pushed your body past failure and taught it to adapt. Who the hell was this woman? That afternoon weapons training, Sergeant Davis laid out 20 M4 carbines on a table in the armory, each one disassembled. "You have 5 minutes to reassemble your weapon. Anyone who can't gets to run the course again. Go." Chaos. 40 recruits grabbed for parts, fumbling with springs and pins and barrels. Lance finished in 3 minutes flat. Madison took 4. Elena managed it with 20 seconds to spare. Olivia finished in 52 seconds. Davis checked his stopwatch, frowned, checked it again. He walked over to Olivia's station and inspected the rifle, pulled the charging handle, checked the bolt, examined the magazine well, looked down the barrel. "Where'd you learn that YouTube sergeant?" "Bullshit. Gun safety videos, Sergeant. There's hundreds of them." Davis stared at her. "Strip it down again. Same speed." Olivia's hands moved. The rifle came apart so fast it looked like choreography barrel upper receiver bolt carrier group charging handle buffer spring. 48 seconds. Recruits had stopped working on their own weapons to watch. "Who trained you?" Davis asked quietly. "Nobody, Sergeant." "I'll ask you one more time, Mitchell. Where did you learn to move like that? My father taught me basic maintenance, Sergeant. The rest I practiced on my own." It wasn't technically a lie. Elena could see that in the way Olivia held eye contact. But it wasn't the whole truth either. Davis looked like he wanted to push it. Then he seemed to think better of it. "Get back to work, Mitchell." "Yes, Sergeant." But the damage was done. Every recruit in that room had seen something they couldn't explain. By dinner, the rumors had started. "I heard she was in jail before this," Sarah Kim whispered in the chow line. "Some kind of violent offense." "My cousin said she was kicked out of another boot camp for fighting," Rachel added. "She's probably on steroids," Jessica suggested. "That's why she's so weird and quiet." Madison, sitting at the head of their table, said nothing. But Elena saw the way she watched Olivia across the dining hall, not with contempt anymore, but with calculation. Madison was many things, but stupid wasn't one of them. She'd recognized that something had shifted, that the easy target she'd chosen was turning out to be something else entirely. The question was what she'd do about it. Elena got her answer 2 days later. Hand-to-hand combat training. Captain Harrow, hard-faced woman with 20 years in special forces and a scar running from her left eye to her jawline, had them pair off for basic grappling drills. "This is controlled aggression," Harrow said, pacing between the pairs. "You're not trying to hurt your partner. You're trying to understand leverage weight distribution center of gravity. Anyone who goes too hard gets pulled from the exercise. Clear?" "Yes, Captain." Madison raised her hand. "Captain, can I request a specific partner?" Harrow's eyes narrowed. "Why, for the challenge, ma'am. I want to work with someone who will push me." "Who?" Madison smiled. "Mitchell." The mat went quiet. Olivia, stretching in the corner, showed no reaction. "Mitchell," Harrow called. "You good with that?" "Yes, Captain." "Then pair up." Elena positioned herself where she could watch. So did half the other recruits. This wasn't about training anymore. This was about hierarchy, about someone trying to put someone else in their place. Madison and Olivia stepped onto the mat. "Standard takedown drill," Harrow said. "Madison, you're attacking. Mitchell, you're defending. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go." Madison moved fast. She shot in for a double-leg takedown, driving her shoulder into Olivia's hips with enough force to knock most people flat. Olivia stepped aside. Not stumbled. Not dodged awkwardly. Stepped. A simple shift of weight that put Madison's momentum into empty air. Madison hit the mat hard. Alone. "Reset," Harrow said. They reset. Madison came in again, trying for a clinch, using her height and weight advantage. Olivia slipped the grip, got behind Madison, and gently guided her down to the mat with a rear body lock that looked more like instruction than combat. "Reset." Elena counted 4 attempts. Madison tried speed, tried power, tried technique, tried feinting. Olivia defended every single attempt without breaking a sweat, and she did it without hurting Madison, without slamming her down, without cranking joints. Every defense was clean, controlled, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse, because it was obvious to everyone watching that Olivia wasn't fighting at her limit. She was holding back, significantly. After the 4th attempt, Harrow called time. "Switch. Mitchell, you're attacking now." Madison was breathing hard, her face flushed with something that looked like panic. Olivia just nodded and reset her position. "Go." Olivia moved. One moment they were standing. The next, Madison was on her back. Olivia's hand light on her shoulder, the takedown so smooth it barely made a sound. 3 seconds, start to finish. "Point," Harrow said. "Reset." They reset. 2 seconds, reset, 1 second. "Enough," Harrow said. She walked onto the mat, studying Olivia. "Mitchell, who taught you to move like that?" "My father, Captain. He was in the service." "What branch?" "Army Captain." "What unit?" "I don't know, Captain. He didn't talk about it much." Harrow's jaw tightened. "You're telling me you learned to grapple like that from a father who didn't talk about his service?" "Yes, Captain." "You're lying." The mat went silent. Olivia met Harrow's eyes without flinching. "No, Captain. I'm just not telling you everything." The honesty of it, the audacity of admitting she was withholding information without lying, left Harrow speechless for 3 full seconds. Then incredibly she laughed. A short, sharp bark of amusement. "Fair enough, Mitchell. Hit the showers. Brooks, you too." Madison stumbled off the mat, her carefully constructed superiority cracking at the edges. She didn't look at Olivia. Didn't look at anyone. Just grabbed her water bottle and walked away with rigid shoulders and clenched jaw. In the locker room afterward, Elena found Olivia alone at her locker, cleaning dirt from under her fingernails. "That was impressive," Elena said. Olivia glanced up. "Thank you. Where'd you really learn that?" "I told Captain Harrow the truth. My father taught me." "But not the whole truth?" Olivia closed her locker. "The truth is relative. What matters is what you do with it." "That's a very careful answer." "I'm a very careful person." Elena studied her, this small, quiet woman who'd just systematically dismantled one of the Bootcamp's top recruits without seeming to try. "Why are you here? Same reason as you, to serve." "No, you're not like the rest of us. You don't need this training. You've already had it. Better training. So why come to Bootcamp at all?" For the first time, something flickered in Olivia's eyes. Not anger. Something sadder. Because sometimes you have to go backward to move forward. Sometimes you have to prove yourself again, even when you've already earned it. Prove yourself to who? To people who'll never believe it anyway. She walked away before Elena could respond. That night, Lance made his move. He waited until after lights out, until the barracks had settled into that fragile, almost sleep, where people were vulnerable. Then he got out of bed, crossed to Olivia's bunk, and ripped her blanket off. "Wake up, Charity Case." Olivia opened her eyes. Didn't sit up. Didn't tense. Just looked at him with that same flat, calm expression. "We need to talk," Lance said. "About what? About you making me look bad in front of the captain." "I didn't make you look bad. Madison did that herself." "Don't play dumb. You embarrassed her, which means you embarrassed me, which means you and I have a problem." Olivia sat up slowly. Around them, other recruits were stirring, waking up sensing drama. Elena pretended to sleep, but kept her eyes cracked open. "I don't have a problem with you, Lance." "Yeah, well, I have a problem with you. You're not better than us just because you can do a couple fancy moves." "I never said I was better than anyone." "You don't have to say it. It's in the way you look at us. Like you're just waiting for us to figure out how special you are." Olivia swung her legs over the edge of the bunk. She was still in her PT gear shorts and a tank top. In the dim emergency lighting, Elena noticed something for the first time. A dark mark on Olivia's shoulder blade, partially hidden by her shirt, like the edge of something larger. "I'm not special," Olivia said. "I'm just trying to get through boot camp like everyone else." "Bullshit. You're hiding something. We all see it. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me who you really are, where you really trained, and why you're really here. Or tomorrow's obstacle course is going to get a lot harder for you. Understand?" Olivia stood. She was 5'6". Lance was 6'2". But somehow the height difference didn't matter. "No," she said. No, I don't understand. You're threatening me because I defended myself well in training. That doesn't make sense." "I'm threatening you because you're making the rest of us look weak, and I don't like it." "Then get better." The simplicity of it, the complete absence of mockery in her voice, made it cut deeper than any insult could have. Lance's face went red. "You think you're tough?" "No." "Then what are you—" Olivia tilted her head slightly, studying him like he was a problem she'd already solved, but hadn't bothered to explain. "I'm patient. That's supposed to scare me. No, it's supposed to warn you. Warn me of what? That I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to report you. I'm not going to do anything except keep showing up and doing my job. And if that makes you feel weak, that's something you need to work out on your own." She lay back down, pulled her blanket up, closed her eyes. Lance stood there, fists clenched, clearly wanting to escalate, but unable to figure out how. You couldn't fight someone who wouldn't fight back. Couldn't intimidate someone who refused to be intimidated. After a long moment, he walked away, muttering something under his breath. But Elena had seen his hands shaking. The next 5 days were worse. They stole her boots, She ran barefoot, finished 9th, said nothing. They poured dish soap in her canteen. She drank from the fountain, said nothing. They spread rumors spy plant military experiment. She ignored everyone. And with each incident, with each petty cruelty that rolled off her like water, the frustration among her bullies grew. Because what they wanted, what they needed, was a reaction. Proof that they could get under her skin. That they still had power over her. But Olivia gave them nothing. It was Sergeant Davis who finally put words to what everyone was feeling. Rifle range. Olivia had just put 5 rounds into a target at 400 meters dead center perfect grouping. She'd done it with a rifle that had a slightly misaligned sight, compensating for the error in real time without mentioning it. Davis checked the target through binoculars. Checked it again. Lowered the binoculars and looked at Olivia. "Mitchell," he said quietly. "Who the hell are you?" She ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, set the rifle down with the muzzle pointing down range. "Just another recruit, Sergeant." "No, you're not. I've been training soldiers for 15 years. I know what normal looks like, and you're not it." "I'm doing my best, Sergeant." "That's what worries me. If this is your best, what the hell is your worst?" Olivia didn't answer. Just stood at attention, eyes forward, giving him nothing. Davis shook his head slowly. "One of these days, Mitchell, you're going to stop pretending. And when you do, a lot of people around here are going to feel very, very stupid." He walked away. Elena, watching from the next lane, made a decision. That night after lights out, she slipped out of her bunk and crossed to Olivia's corner. "Can't sleep," Olivia whispered. "Need to ask you something." "Go ahead." Elena crouched beside the bunk. "Are you dangerous?" In the darkness, she couldn't see Olivia's expression, but she felt the weight of the pause. "Yes," Olivia said quietly. "But not to anyone here, not unless they force me to be." "Who trained you, really? Someone who believed I was worth saving. From what? From becoming what he was." Elena waited, but Olivia didn't elaborate. "Why are you letting them treat you like this? You could end it, all of it. I've seen what you can do." "Because ending it isn't the same as winning, and winning isn't the same as being right." That's pretty philosophical for someone who can take down a grown man in under a second. Olivia smiled in the darkness. Elena could hear it in her voice. "My teacher used to say that the strongest weapon isn't the one you use. It's the one you choose not to." Your teacher sounds intense. He was. He also said that respect earned through fear is just control with a prettier name. And control never lasts. So what does last? Proof. Proof of what? That you are exactly who you say you are, no matter what they do to try to change you. Elena thought about that. And what happens when the proof comes? Olivia's voice went very quiet. Very still. Then people stop testing you. Because they finally understand what they've been testing. And when will that be? Soon, Olivia said. Very soon. 2 days later, during a combat simulation exercise, it happened. They were running urban warfare drills in the training facility, a mock city block with plywood buildings and narrow alleyways designed to simulate close-quarters combat. The recruits were divided into 2 teams, attackers and defenders. Olivia was on the defending team. Lance was attacking. Captain Harrow stood on an observation platform with a bullhorn. Rules are simple. Defenders hold the building for 10 minutes. Attackers try to breach and tag 3 defenders. Paintball rounds only. Headshots don't count. Move with purpose. Think tactically. Begin. The attackers moved out. Elena, defending beside Olivia on the 2nd floor, watched through a window as Lance organized his team with surprising efficiency. He was an ass, but he wasn't stupid. He split his force, half going for the front entrance, half circling to find a back way in. "They're flanking," Elena whispered. "I know," Olivia said. She was crouched beside a doorway, paintball rifle, held with casual competence. "Let them. The back entrance funnels into a kill box. They'll lose half their team before they realize it." "How do you—" Elena stopped. "Never mind." The attack came fast. Lance's front team breached the main entrance with flashbangs, training versions that made noise but no real light or concussion. Defenders on the first floor opened fire. Paintball rounds cracked against walls and windows. 2 attackers went down immediately, paint splattered across their chests. But Lance was through. He came up the stairs with 3 others, moving with the kind of coordinated aggression that suggested he'd actually paid attention during the tactical briefings. Olivia leaned out from her doorway and fired twice. 2 more attackers down, paint blooming across their shoulders. Lance dove into a side room. "Focus fire on that doorway." 3 rifles swung toward Olivia's position. She pulled back just before a stream of paintballs chewed up the doorframe. "Mitchell!" Harrow's voice crackled over the speakers. "You're pinned! What's your move?" Olivia didn't answer. She just reached up and pulled the magazine from her rifle. Checked the round count. 15 left. Slid it back in with a smooth click that spoke of muscle memory drilled into permanent reflex. Then she did something Elena didn't expect. She stood up and walked into the hallway. Not tactically. Not with cover. She just walked out into the open with her rifle held low, not even raised to firing position. Lance and his team froze. It was such a bizarre move, such a complete violation of everything they'd been taught, that for a half-second nobody shot. That half-second was all Olivia needed. She brought the rifle up and fired. 3 shots. 3 different targets. 3 hits. Lance's entire team went down in under 2 seconds. "Cease fire!" Harrow's voice boomed across the facility. "Attackers are eliminated. Defenders win." Silence. Then movement recruits pulling off paintball masks, checking hits, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. Lance got to his feet slowly, looking down at the paint splattered across his vest. His face had gone from red to pale to red again. That was bullshit. That was tactical superiority, Harrow said, climbing down from the observation platform. Mitchell baited you into a firing position that divided your attention, then exploited the gap in your reaction time. Textbook. She walked into the open, Lance said. That's not tactical, that's suicide. It's suicide if you're not fast enough, Harrow countered. She was fast enough. You weren't. Madison, watching from the defender's position, had an expression Elena couldn't quite read. Not anger, not even frustration. Something closer to calculation, like she was running numbers in her head and didn't like the answer she was getting. Run it again, Lance said. I want another shot. Negative, Harrow said. We're moving to hand-to-hand sparring. Everyone to the main training mat. 5 minutes. The recruits filed out of the mock building. Elena caught up with Olivia in the hallway. That was insane, Elena said quietly. That was necessary. You could have just stayed in cover. We were winning. I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to end it. What's the difference? Olivia glanced at her. Winning means you're better. Ending it means they stop trying. They reached the main training mat, a massive padded area big enough for multiple sparring pairs. Harrow was waiting with her arms crossed, and that scar catching the overhead lights. Pair off, she said. Same as last time. Controlled aggression. Anyone goes too hard, you're done. Recruits started partnering up. Elena turned to find Chen, but before she could move, Lance's voice cut across the mat. Captain, I want to spar Mitchell. Everyone stopped. Harrow looked at Lance. looked at Olivia. You sure about that, Morrison? Absolutely. I think she got lucky with the drill. I want to see how she does in real contact. This isn't about revenge, Harrow warned. It's about training Captain. She's clearly skilled. I want to learn from her. The words were right. The tone was right. But Elena saw the look in Lance's eyes, the cold, calculated fury of someone who'd been humiliated and wanted payback. Harrow saw it too. Mitchell, you good with this? Olivia set down her water bottle. Yes, Captain. Rules are the same. Controlled, aggression, first to 3 takedowns wins. Clear. Yes, Captain. Then get on the mat. Lance and Olivia walked to the center. Every recruit in the facility had stopped to watch. This wasn't training anymore. This was a reckoning. They touched gloves, backed up. Harrow raised her hand. Go. Lance came in hard. Harder than he'd gone with anyone else. He shot for a double-leg takedown with enough force to crack ribs if it landed clean. Olivia wasn't there. She'd moved not away, but sideways and slightly forward, redirecting Lance's momentum past her with a hip check that looked almost casual. Lance stumbled, caught himself, spun around. Point to Mitchell, Harrow said. Reset. They reset. Lance was breathing hard now, frustration written across every line of his body. This time he came in more carefully, trying for control rather than power. Olivia let him close. Let him get grips on her shoulders. Let him start to set up a throw. Then she broke his grips with a sharp wrist twist, ducked under his arm, and took his back. Before he could react, she had both hooks in and was controlling his posture with a seatbelt grip. From there, it would have been easy to choke him out, to show everyone exactly how outmatched he was. Instead, she just held him there for 3 seconds. Let him feel how completely he was controlled. Then she let go and stepped back. Point to Mitchell, Harrow said. Final point. Morrison, you sure you want to continue? Lance's face had gone dark red. I'm sure. Then reset. They reset. This time, Lance didn't even try for technique. He just rushed her, trying to use his size and strength to overwhelm her through sheer aggression. Mistake. Olivia dropped her weight, got under his center of gravity, and executed a textbook uchimata, a throw that used Lance's own momentum against him. He went airborne. For a half second, he was completely horizontal, 3 feet off the mat. Then he came down. Olivia tried to guide the fall, tried to control it the way she'd been controlling everything else. But Lance, panicking, reached out and grabbed. His hand caught her shirt. The fabric twisted. There was a ripping sound. And then everything stopped. Olivia stood there in the center of the mat, her shirt torn completely down the back, the fabric hanging in tatters. And between her shoulder blades, impossible to miss, was a tattoo. A black viper coiled around a skull. The ink was old, faded slightly at the edges, but still sharp in its essential details. The viper's scales were rendered with photorealistic precision. The skull's eye sockets seemed to follow you no matter where you stood. And underneath, in letters so small you'd have to be close to read them, was a single word in Latin, umbra. Shadow. Elena knew that mark. Anyone who'd spent serious time in the military knew that mark. Ghost Vipers Unit, the most classified Black Ops team in U.S. Special Forces history. So secret, the government had officially erased all records of its existence. And the mark on Olivia's back wasn't just any tattoo. It was the one Ghost Viper had only given to his final student. The one operative he'd trained personally. The one who'd completed every trial, survived every test, and earned the right to carry his legacy. The mat had gone completely silent. Someone in the observation area dropped something. It clattered against the floor like a gunshot. Then a door opened at the far end of the facility. Colonel James Patterson walked in. He was 50-something decorated veteran commander of the entire training facility. Elena had seen him exactly twice in 3 weeks, both times from a distance. Now he was walking directly toward the mat with an expression she'd never seen on a senior officer's face before. Recognition. And something that looked almost like fear. He stopped at the edge of the mat, looked at the tattoo, looked at Olivia's face. Then slowly, deliberately, Colonel Patterson came to attention and saluted. Not the casual salute officers gave to subordinates. The full formal salute of respect, given only to equals, or those who'd earned it through blood and fire. "Olivia Mitchell," he said quietly. "Student of Ghost Viper. Shadow Operative. The last of the Umbra program." Olivia didn't move, didn't salute back. Just stood there with her ruined shirt hanging off her shoulders and her face completely calm. "Sir," she said. "How long were you going to let this continue?" Patterson asked. "As long as necessary, sir." "And how long is that? Until I proved what I came here to prove. Which is, that rank doesn't matter. That reputation doesn't matter. That the only thing that matters is who you are when nobody's watching and everyone's testing you." Patterson held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Permission to speak freely, Mitchell." "Granted, sir." "You're an idiot." A sound rippled through the watching recruits, something between a gasp and a laugh. "Yes, sir," Olivia said. "Probably. You let them abuse you, humiliate you, treat you like dirt, when you could have ended it at any time." "Yes, sir." "Why?" "Because respect earned through fear is just control with a prettier name, sir. And I didn't come here to control anyone. I came here to see if they'd learn to respect someone without knowing who she was." "And did they?" Olivia looked at Elena. At the other recruits who'd watched her defend, without attacking, endure, without breaking, prove, without announcing. "Some of them did, sir." Patterson nodded. Then he turned to face the assembled recruits. For those of you who don't know, Ghost Viper was the designation of Master Sergeant Marcus Viper, the most effective operator in modern Special Forces history. He died 6 years ago on a classified operation. Before he died, he trained exactly 1 student to carry on his methods. He gestured to Olivia. "You've been training alongside that student for 2 weeks. You've mocked her, stolen from her, assaulted her, and she let you. Because she was teaching you something more important than combat techniques or tactical skills. She was teaching you what real strength looks like." Lance, still on the mat where Olivia had thrown him, looked like he was going to be sick. Madison had gone completely pale. Patterson turned back to Olivia. "What do you want to do now, Mitchell? You've proved your point. You can leave. Return to active status. We both know you don't need this training." "I'd like to stay, sir, if you'll have me." "Why?" "Because I came here to be a student, and I'm not done learning yet." Patterson smiled, a rare, genuine expression that transformed his entire face. "Captain Harrow." "Yes, sir." "Effective immediately, Mitchell is honorary instructor for this training cycle. She'll assist with advanced combat training and tactical assessment. Anyone who has a problem with that can come see me directly." "Understood, sir." Patterson saluted Olivia again. This time she returned it. Then he turned and walked out of the facility, leaving behind a mat full of recruits who were trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Elena was the first to move. She walked onto the mat and stood beside Olivia. "You know," Elena said quietly, "you could have just told us." Olivia smiled a real smile, the first one Elena had seen from her. "Would you have believed me?" "Probably not." "Then what would have been the point?" Chen joined them. Then 2 more recruits, then 5. Within 30 seconds, half the training facility was clustered around Olivia, not to challenge her anymore, but to stand with her. Lance and Madison stayed where they were isolated at the edges. Harrow clapped her hands once. "All right, show's over. Mitchell, get yourself a new shirt. The rest of you hit the showers. We've got a night navigation exercise in 3 hours, and I guarantee most of you aren't ready for it." The recruits dispersed slowly, still stealing glances at Olivia as they went. Elena lingered. "What happens now?" Olivia pulled her torn shirt closed. "Now we train. Same as before. But it won't be the same." "No," Olivia agreed. "It won't, but that's not always a bad thing." "Will they face consequences, Lance and Madison and the others?" "That's not for me to decide." "But you could push for it. You could—" "I could," Olivia interrupted gently. "But I won't, because the point wasn't to punish them. The point was to show them what they'd been attacking. Now they know. What they do with that knowledge is up to them." Elena shook her head, smiling despite herself. "You're either the wisest person I've ever met, or the craziest." "Those aren't mutually exclusive," Olivia said. They walked toward the locker room together. Behind them, Lance finally got to his feet, moving like a man who'd just had his entire world view shattered. And in the observation deck above Colonel Patterson stood watching with his arms crossed and a satisfied expression on his face. Sometimes he thought the best lessons were the ones you had to learn the hard way. And judging by the looks on those recruits' faces, they'd just learned one they'd never forget. The news spread through the base like wildfire. By morning formation, every recruit knew. By breakfast, every instructor. By lunch, even the maintenance crew was talking about the woman who'd spent 2 weeks being treated like garbage and turned out to be one of the most lethal operatives the military had ever produced. Elena watched it happen in real time, the shift in how people looked at Olivia. The way conversations stopped when she walked past. The way recruits who'd laughed at her stumbling through obstacle courses now studied her every movement like she was teaching a masterclass. Lance and Madison were conspicuously absent from breakfast. "They're meeting with Patterson," Chen said quietly, sliding into the seat beside Elena. "Saw them heading to his office at 0600. "What do you think he'll do?" "Honestly, I think he'll tear them apart. Morrison ripped her shirt. That's assault, technically." "Olivia won't push for charges." "Doesn't matter. Patterson saw it happen. And now everyone knows what Morrison was really doing, trying to humiliate someone who's forgotten more about combat than he'll ever learn." Elena poked at her eggs. Across the dining hall, Olivia sat alone at a corner table eating oatmeal and reading a technical manual like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't just turned the entire base upside down. "She's not even fazed," Elena muttered. "Why would she be?" Chen said. "This is probably the least stressful thing that's happened to her in years. Ghost Viper's training program had a 97% washout rate. People died trying to complete it, and she finished." "How do you know that?" "My dad served with someone who claimed they saw Ghost Viper once. Said the guy could kill you 17 different ways with a ballpoint pen and make it look like natural causes. Said his student was worse because she looked harmless." Elena glanced at Olivia again. She'd finished her oatmeal and was now helping a younger recruit, some kid from Texas, who'd been struggling with equipment maintenance, showing him how to properly clean a rifle bolt. Patient, gentle, no condescension. "Yeah," Elena said. "I can see that." Patterson's office was on the 3rd floor of the administrative building corner room, with windows overlooking the training grounds. Lance and Madison sat in chairs facing his desk, backs rigid, eyes forward. Patterson didn't sit. He stood behind his desk with his hands clasped behind his back, studying them the way a biologist might study an invasive species. "Do you know," he said finally, "why Ghost Viper chose Mitchell as his student?" Neither of them answered. It wasn't because she was the strongest. It wasn't because she was the fastest. It was because when he tested her, when he pushed her past every reasonable limit, when he broke her down physically and mentally, she never once blamed anyone else for her failures. She owned them, learned from them, came back stronger. He walked around the desk, stopping directly in front of them. You two have been here for 3 weeks. In that time, you've stolen from a fellow recruit, vandalized her property, physically assaulted her, spread malicious rumors, and filmed her struggles for entertainment. Do you have anything to say for yourselves? Madison spoke first. Sir, we didn't know. You didn't know what, that she was trained by Ghost Viper, that she was a classified operative, that she could kill both of you before you even registered she'd moved. Patterson's voice went cold. Or did you mean you didn't know she was human, that she deserved basic respect regardless of who trained her? Silence. Let me be clear, Patterson continued. Mitchell could have ended this at any time. She could have filed formal complaints. She could have demonstrated exactly what she's capable of and made you both look like children playing soldier. Instead, she chose to endure, to prove a point that apparently neither of you were intelligent enough to understand. What point, sir? Lance asked, his voice barely above a whisper. That strength without character is just brutality with better marketing. That skill without humility is just arrogance waiting to get people killed. That respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn by being worthy of it. Patterson returned to his desk, pulled 2 folders from a drawer, and dropped them on the surface with a heavy thud. Morrison, you're hereby demoted from team leader position. You'll spend the next 2 weeks on sanitation duty, latrines, kitchen grounds, maintenance. Maybe scrubbing toilets will teach you something about humility. Lance's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Yes, sir? Brooks, your father called this morning. Apparently someone sent him the footage of you pouring that energy drink on Mitchell's pillow. Madison went pale. Sir, I can explain. You don't need to explain. The footage speaks for itself. Your father was, shall we say, disappointed. He's personally requested that you be held to the same standards as everyone else, which means no special treatment, no appeals to family connections. You're on probation. 1 more incident, and you're discharged. Clear? Yes, sir, Madison whispered. Both of you will also write formal apologies to Mitchell. Handwritten, minimum 500 words. Due on my desk by 1800 hours today, and you will deliver copies to her in person. Sir, Lance started. That wasn't a request, Morrison. That was an order. Now get out of my office before I decide your punishments aren't severe enough. They stood saluted and walked out on unsteady legs. Patterson waited until the door closed. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Reed, it's Patterson. Your wife is going to be the death of me. On the other end, General Thomas Reed laughed. What did she do now? Spent 2 weeks getting abused by recruits who didn't know any better, then revealed herself in the most dramatic way possible. You know she's trending on military forums. Someone leaked footage of the tattoo reveal. It's everywhere. That sounds like Olivia. She always did have a flair for timing. You could have warned me she was coming. And ruin her experiment. She wanted to see if people would respect her without knowing her credentials. I wasn't about to interfere. Patterson rubbed his temples. She's terrifying, Tom. You know that, right? I've been doing this for 23 years, and I've never seen anyone move like her. It's not human. That's what 6 years of training under Marcus Viper does to a person. He rebuilt her from the ground up. And now she's here playing instructor for a bunch of kids who spent 2 weeks treating her like trash. What's her end game? Same as it's always been. She wants to prove that the old way, fear, intimidation, dominance, doesn't work as well as integrity and patience. She wants to change how we train people. By letting them abuse her, by showing them what happens when they mistake kindness for weakness. Patterson was quiet for a moment. When are you coming to get her? 3 weeks. She's yours until then. Try not to let anyone else rip her shirt off. Hilarious. How's she really doing, Tom, mentally? Reed's voice softened. Better than she was. The nightmares aren't as frequent. She doesn't check exits compulsively anymore. Coming back to basic training starting over, it's been good for her. Reminded her that she's more than what Viper made her. And what did Viper make her? A ghost. A weapon. Someone who could disappear into any situation and complete any mission no matter how impossible. But weapons don't get to have normal lives, Jim. They don't get to retire. And Olivia spent 3 years trying to figure out who she was when she wasn't being the thing Viper trained her to be. Did she figure it out? I think she's getting there. Ask me again in 3 weeks. They hung up. Patterson looked out his window at the training grounds below, where Olivia was now demonstrating proper knife techniques to a group of mesmerized recruits. God help anyone who underestimated her twice. The apologies came at 17:30 hours. Olivia was in the equipment room reorganizing the climbing gear someone had left in chaos when Lance and Madison walked in. They both looked like they'd been dragged through a wood chipper, backward, exhausted, humiliated, and barely holding it together. "Mitchell," Lance said, "we need to talk." Olivia hung the last carabiner on its hook and turned to face them. "Okay." Madison stepped forward, holding a folded piece of paper like it was made of glass. "We wrote these. Apologies. Patterson ordered us to deliver them personally." She held out the paper. Olivia took it, unfolded it, and read. It was 537 words of careful, formal contrition. Madison admitted to vandalism, harassment, and abuse of authority. She acknowledged that her actions were indefensible and promised to do better. The words were technically correct, but they had the emotional resonance of a legal document written by committee. Olivia folded it back up. "Thank you." "That's it," Madison said. "You're not going to say anything. What would you like me to say? I don't know. Tell us we're terrible people. Tell us you're going to make our lives hell for the next 3 weeks. Tell us something." Olivia studied her. Madison's hands were shaking. There were dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Do you actually feel sorry?" Olivia asked quietly. "Or are you just sorry you got caught?" Madison opened her mouth, closed it, looked at the floor. "I don't know. That's honest, at least. I grew up watching my dad, watching how everyone treated him with respect because of his rank. I thought that's how it worked. You earned rank, you got respect. But you don't have rank. You're just a recruit like the rest of us, and everyone respects you more than they've ever respected me. Do you know why? Because you're a badass who trained under Ghost Viper? No, because I don't need their respect to know who I am." Madison looked up confusion written across her face. "What does that mean?" "It means respect from others is nice, but it's not the foundation you build your life on, because people are fickle. They'll respect you today and tear you down tomorrow. The only respect that matters is the respect you have for yourself when nobody's watching." That's easy for you to say. You've proven yourself. I've proven myself to other people, but I spent 3 years trying to prove myself to me. And that's the harder part. That's the part that actually matters. Lance, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke. "Why didn't you fight back? You could have destroyed us." "Because destroying you wouldn't have taught you anything. It would have just confirmed what you already believed, that power equals right. That strength means victory. But those are lies people tell themselves to justify being cruel." "So what's the truth?" Olivia smiled slightly. "The truth is that the strongest person in any room is usually the one who doesn't need to prove it." Lance looked at his apology letter still folded in his hand. "I wrote 500 words. You want to know what they really mean? If you want to tell me. They mean I'm embarrassed. They mean I spent 2 weeks treating someone like garbage because I was afraid of what it meant that you were better than me. They mean I'm sorry, But I'm also terrified that being sorry isn't enough. Why terrified? Because what if I'm just like this? What if this is who I am? Someone who tears people down to feel bigger? Olivia took the letter from his hand, unfolded it, read it. Then she did something neither of them expected. She tore it in half. "What are you?" Lance started. "This letter is for Patterson. It's for the official record. It's words on paper that don't mean anything unless you change who you are." She handed the torn pieces back. "I don't need your apology, Lance. I need you to be better. Not for me. For you. For the people you'll lead someday. For the soldiers who'll depend on you to make good decisions when everything's falling apart." How do I do that? You start by asking yourself why you felt the need to hurt me in the first place, and you keep asking until you find an answer that isn't "because I could." Then you take that answer and you work on fixing it, every single day. Madison wiped her eyes quickly. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone colder. Someone who'd enjoy watching us suffer." "I did watch you suffer. But I didn't enjoy it. I just knew it was necessary." "Why?" "Because some lessons only stick when you learn them the hard way. And you needed to learn that respect isn't transactional, that kindness isn't weakness, that the person you're underestimating might be the person who saves your life someday." They stood there for a long moment, the three of them in an equipment room that smelled like chalk dust and old rope. Finally, Madison nodded. "We'll be better." "I hope so." They turned to leave. Lance paused at the door. "Mitchell, for what it's worth, thank you for not breaking my neck when you had the chance." "You're welcome," Olivia said. "But the night's still young." He laughed despite himself. Then they were gone. Elena found her 20 minutes later, still organizing equipment. "How'd it go?" "How'd what go?" "The apologies." Chen said they delivered them. "They were fine." "Fine, that's it." Olivia hung the last rope. "What do you want me to say?" "They apologized. I accepted. We move forward." "You're not even a little bit angry." "Anger is exhausting, Elena, and it doesn't change anything. They made mistakes. They'll either learn from them or they won't. But me being angry about it doesn't impact that equation." Elena shook her head. "I would have made them grovel." "And then what? They grovel, they resent you, and nothing actually changes. People don't transform because you shame them. They transform because you give them a reason to be better." Is that a ghost Viper philosophy? No, that's a me philosophy. Viper taught me how to fight. He didn't teach me how to forgive. That's something I had to figure out on my own. They walked back to the barracks together. The sun was setting, painting the training grounds in shades of orange and purple. Recruits were scattered across the quad, some running drills, some just talking. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said. "Sure." "Why'd you really come here to boot camp? It wasn't just to prove a point." Olivia was quiet for a long time. They'd almost reached the barracks before she answered. "I came here because I needed to remember what it felt like to be a student, to be learning instead of doing, to be building instead of destroying." "Destroying what?" "People." Olivia looked at her hands. "Viper trained me to neutralize threats. He was very good at his job, which meant I became very good at mine. But after a while, you start to forget that the targets have names, families, lives. You start to see them as problems to solve instead of human beings. And you wanted to stop seeing people that way. I wanted to remember that I was human too, that I wasn't just a weapon someone pointed at a target. Coming here, starting over, being treated like everyone else, it was a way to reset, to prove to myself that I could be more than what Viper made me." "And did you prove it?" Olivia smiled. "Ask me in 3 weeks." The next morning, Captain Harrow pulled Olivia aside after formation. "Patterson wants you to run advanced tactical training this afternoon. Small group 10 recruits who've shown aptitude for field work. He thinks they'll benefit from someone who's actually done the job. What's the focus? Close quarters combat, specifically how to neutralize a threat without killing them. Olivia raised an eyebrow. That's a very specific skill set. That's why he wants you teaching it. Most instructors default to lethal solutions. But you've got experience with extractions, hostage situations, high-value target captures. We need people who can think beyond shoot first, ask questions never. All right, I'll need the training facility from 1400 to 1600. It's yours. Recruits will be briefed at lunch. That afternoon, 10 recruits filed into the training facility. Elena was among them. So was Chen. Madison wasn't. She was still on probation, restricted to basic duties. Lance was there, though. He'd earned back some privileges by keeping his head down and working harder than anyone else. When he saw Olivia, he nodded once. She nodded back. Harrow stood at the front. Listen up. For the next 2 hours, you're being instructed by someone with more combat experience than everyone in this room combined. She's going to teach you things that aren't in any manual. You will pay attention. You will respect her expertise. And if anyone makes a joke about her being a charity case, I will personally ensure you regret it for the rest of your military career. Clear? Yes, Captain. Harrow left. The door closed. Olivia stood alone in front of 10 recruits, who were now looking at her like she was made of live ammunition. Relax, Olivia said. I'm not going to hurt you. Probably. A few nervous laughs. Today we're talking about non-lethal neutralization. Does anyone know why that's important? A recruit named Davis raised his hand. Because killing creates more problems than it solves. Close. Killing creates consequences, political consequences, diplomatic consequences. Sometimes the consequences of killing someone outweigh the benefits of removing them from the field. So you need to be able to end a threat without ending a life. She walked to the center of the mat. I need a volunteer. Someone who thinks they can take me down. Silence. Nobody moved. Come on, I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm going to teach you. But I need someone willing to try. Lance stood up. I'll do it. Olivia nodded. Good. Come here. He walked onto the mat, rolling his shoulders. He'd clearly been training. His stance was better, his movement more controlled. Attack me, Olivia said. Any way you want. Just try to take me down. Lance hesitated. You sure? Positive. He came in fast, shooting for a takedown. Olivia didn't move away. She moved into him, controlling his head with one hand and his shoulder with the other. Then she applied pressure, not much, just enough to make him feel it. Lance's forward momentum stopped. He tried to push through, but Olivia's positioning was perfect. He couldn't generate any power. Feel that, Olivia said. You're stuck. You can't go forward, can't pull back. All I'm doing is controlling 2 points on your body. If I wanted to hurt you, I could. Knee to the face, elbow to the spine, dozen different options. But I don't need to hurt you. I just need to stop you. She released him. He stumbled back, breathing hard. Now let's talk about why that works. It's not about strength. Lance is stronger than me. It's about leverage and positioning. In combat, especially close quarters, the person who controls position controls the fight. For the next 90 minutes, she walked them through techniques. How to control someone's head to control their body. How to break grips without force. How to use someone's momentum against them. How to create pain without causing injury. She demonstrated on volunteers. Let them try techniques on her. Corrected their positioning with patience that surprised even Elena. You're really good at this, Elena said during a water break. Teaching, I mean. Viper was a good teacher. I learned from watching him. Was he patient like you? Olivia laughed. No, he was brutal. He'd throw you into situations where you had no choice but to figure it out, or fail. But he never let you fail without understanding why. That's the key, making sure people understand the why, not just the how. Did you ever fail? All the time. That's how I learned. What was the worst failure? Olivia's expression shifted slightly. There was a mission, 3 years ago. High-value target in the compound in Syria. We were supposed to extract him alive. Bring him in for interrogation. What happened? I made a judgment call. Decided the risk of capture was too high. Neutralized him instead. That doesn't sound like a failure. It was, because the intelligence he had could have prevented an attack that killed 17 people 2 months later. My decision, my failure to find another way cost lives. Elena didn't know what to say. That's why I'm here, Olivia continued. That's why I teach patience, control, non-lethal options. Because every time you default to killing, you lose information, you lose opportunities, and sometimes you lose more than you realize until it's too late. The session ended at 1600. The recruits filed out exhausted but energized. Lance lingered behind. Mitchell, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why'd you let me volunteer? You knew I was the one who ripped your shirt. That's exactly why I picked you. I don't understand. You needed to see that I don't hold grudges, that what happened yesterday is over. We move forward, or we don't move at all. Lance nodded slowly. I meant what I said earlier. I'm trying to be better. I know, I see it. How can you tell? Because you volunteered to get thrown around in front of your peers. That takes humility. 2 weeks ago you didn't have that. He smiled a real smile, not the cocky smirk he'd worn before. Thanks for not breaking my arm. The day's not over yet. He left laughing. Elena stayed behind, helping Olivia put away the training equipment. You're really good with them, Elena said. They're good kids. They just needed someone to show them a different way. You think they'll remember this after you leave? Some will, some won't. But the ones who do, they'll be the ones who change how things work, one person at a time. That's how you transform a system, not by burning it down, but by showing people there's a better way to build it. They finished cleaning up in comfortable silence. Outside, the sun was setting again, casting long shadows across the training grounds. In 3 weeks, Olivia would leave, would go back to her life with Thomas Reed to whatever came next. But for now, for these final weeks, she was exactly where she needed to be. Teaching, learning, proving that strength without compassion was just cruelty with better press, and watching as the people who'd mocked her slowly transformed into the kind of soldiers the military actually needed. That night, Elena found a note on her bunk. Handwritten. Olivia's precise script. You asked me why I came here. The real answer. To find people like you. People who see clearly, who ask hard questions, who don't accept easy answers. The military needs people like you more than it needs people like me. Don't forget that. Oh. Elena folded the note carefully and put it in her pocket. She wouldn't forget. None of them would. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It started small recruits holding doors for each other, equipment returned to proper storage, instead of dumped wherever conversations that didn't revolve around who could lift more or run faster. Lance stopped making jokes at other people's expense. Madison started asking questions instead of assuming she knew everything. Chen organized a study group for tactical theory that met 3 nights a week. Elena watched it all with the detached fascination of someone observing a social experiment in real time. Because that's what it was, really. Olivia had planted seeds, and now they were growing in directions nobody had anticipated. The most surprising change was Sarah Kim. Sarah had been part of Madison's crew from day one. Quiet, anxious to please the kind of person who laughed at jokes she didn't find funny, because not laughing felt dangerous. She'd poured that energy drink on Olivia's pillow while Madison watched. She'd filmed some of the worst harassment and uploaded it to private group chats with captions like, "Charity case strikes again." Now she showed up at Olivia's door at 2100 hours on a Tuesday, 3 days after the advanced tactical training, holding a laptop like it was evidence in a murder trial. "I need to show you something," Sarah said. Olivia looked up from the field manual she'd been reading. "Come in." Sarah entered, closed the door, and sat down on the edge of Elena's bunk. Her hands were shaking. "I did something really bad. Before. When Madison was... I know what you did, Sarah. You know, I saw the videos. Patterson showed me. Part of the investigation." Sarah went pale. "And you didn't say anything? What would I have said? You already knew it was wrong. Me telling you that wouldn't have changed anything." "I deleted them. All of them. From my phone, from the cloud, from everywhere. But I think..." She opened the laptop. "I think someone else saved copies before I deleted them, and they're planning to leak them publicly." She turned the screen around. It showed a group chat, 15 members' names Olivia didn't recognize. The messages were recent, within the last hour. Cadet Fury 87. "You still got those Mitchell videos, TAC Ops, Kyle." "Yeah, backed them up before Kim went soft and deleted everything." Cadet Fury 87. "Post them. People need to see what happens when you let women into combat training. She got lucky with that tattoo reveal, but she's still just a diversity hire." TAC Ops, Kyle. "Posting to Millwatch tonight. Site gets 500K views a day. Should be fun." Olivia read through the messages without expression. Then she handed the laptop back. "When are they posting?" "Tonight. Maybe an hour from now. The site's administrator is in the chat. He's the one who agreed to host it." "And you're telling me this because..." Sarah's voice cracked. "Because I helped create those videos. I filmed you struggling. I laughed when Madison mocked you. I was part of making your life hell, and now other people are going to use that to hurt you more. And I can't just let that happen without trying to stop it." "Why not? What? Why can't you let it happen? 2 weeks ago you would have. What changed?" Sarah wiped her eyes roughly. "You changed. You showed us that being strong doesn't mean being cruel, that you can have power without using it to destroy people. And I realized I don't want to be the kind of person who tears others down to feel important, but I don't know how to fix what I did. I don't know how to make this right." Olivia was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. "Patterson, it's Mitchell. I need access to your office computer, now. No, I can't explain over the phone. Yes, it's urgent. I'll be there in 5 minutes." She hung up, looked at Sarah. "Come with me. Bring the laptop." They walked across the base in silence, Sarah half running to keep up with Olivia's pace. Patterson was waiting in his office door open, looking irritated and concerned in equal measure. "This better be good, Mitchell." "It's not good. It's necessary." She gestured to Sarah. "Show him." Sarah pulled up the chat logs. Patterson read through them, his expression darkening with each message. When he finished, he looked at Olivia. "What do you want to do?" "I want to send a message. Not to the people in this chat, to everyone watching. To everyone who thinks harassment is acceptable as long as you don't get caught." "What kind of message?" "The kind that makes them think twice before they hit send." Patterson leaned back in his chair. "I'm listening." 20 minutes later, Olivia was logged into Patterson's command terminal with full administrative access. Sarah sat beside her laptop, open, tracking the chat in real time. Patterson stood behind them, both arms crossed. "They're uploading now," Sarah said. File size suggests it's all the videos compiled together, maybe 10 minutes of footage. How long until it goes live? Administrator has to approve it. Maybe 30 minutes. That's enough time. Olivia's fingers moved across the keyboard with the kind of speed that suggested she'd done this before. Military databases opened and closed. Security protocols that should have required 3 levels of authorization somehow bypassed themselves. Within 5 minutes, she had access to the Millwatch site's back-end architecture. "How are you doing that?" Sarah whispered. "Viper taught me more than combat. He believed in understanding systems, all systems, political, social, digital, because the best way to win a fight is to make sure it never happens. And you can't do that if you don't understand the battlefield." Patterson watched the screen. "You're going to take the site down?" "No, I'm going to give them exactly what they want." She pulled up the video file that was pending approval, downloaded it, opened it in an editing program that looked military grade. Then she started cutting. The original videos showed Olivia struggling, falling, looking uncertain. They showed Madison mocking her, Lance shoving her other recruits, laughing. They were designed to humiliate, to prove she didn't belong. Olivia left all of that in, but then she added context. Footage from the weapons training Olivia assembling the rifle in 52 seconds. Footage from the grappling session Madison failing 7 attempts, while Olivia defended effortlessly. Footage from the combat simulation Olivia taking down 3 attackers in under 2 seconds. And finally, footage from the tattoo reveal Colonel Patterson's salute and Harrow's announcement that Olivia was Ghost Viper's final student. She stitched it all together with precision, adding text overlays at key moments. Week 1. They saw weakness. Week 2. They created harassment. Week 3. They learned what real strength looks like. The final overlay appeared over the image of Olivia's tattoo. Respect isn't demanded. It's earned. And it's never given to those who mock others for entertainment. She saved the file, replaced the original upload with her edited version, left everything else intact, the poster's username, the timestamp, the inflammatory description they'd written. "When this goes live," Olivia said, "everyone who clicks expecting to see harassment footage is going to see the full story instead. They'll see what happens when you underestimate someone. And they'll see that the people who filmed this ended up looking worse than the person they were trying to humiliate." "You're using their own weapon against them," Patterson said. "I'm giving them enough rope to hang themselves. The video will go viral either way. Might as well control the narrative." Sarah stared at the screen. "They're going to hate me, everyone in that chat. They'll know I was the one who gave you access." "Probably. And you're okay with that?" Olivia looked at her. "Are you—" Sarah took a breath. Let it out slowly. "Yeah, I am. Because being hated for doing the right thing is better than being liked for doing nothing." "Then we're good." Olivia hit upload. "It'll be live in 10 minutes. Patterson, you might want to prepare a statement for when this hits command attention. Because it will." "What kind of statement?" "The kind that says this facility has 0 tolerance for harassment. That anyone found participating in activities like this will face immediate disciplinary action. That strength of character matters more than strength of body." Patterson nodded. "I can do that." They left his office together. Sarah walked beside Olivia in silence for half the distance back to the barracks. Then she said, "Why didn't you just report them file charges? You had grounds for it." "Because charges would have made them martyrs, would have given them something to rally against. This way they expose themselves. They become cautionary tales instead of victims." That's pretty calculated. Viper used to say that the best battles are the ones you win without fighting. Because if you fight, even if you win, you've still spent resources and energy. But if you let your enemy defeat themselves, you walk away clean. Is that what you did? Let us defeat ourselves. Olivia stopped walking, looked at Sarah directly. I gave you the opportunity to choose who you wanted to be. You chose mockery. Then you chose redemption. Both of those were your decisions, not mine. I just provided the circumstances that made you confront them. So this whole thing, you getting harassed, enduring everything we did, that was all part of some master plan. No, it was me trying to survive boot camp like everyone else. But when people started testing me, I decided to use it as a teaching moment. For them, for me, for everyone watching. Sarah shook her head slowly. You're either the wisest person I've ever met, or the scariest. Those aren't mutually exclusive. They reached the barracks. The lights were still on inside, people getting ready for bed, finishing last-minute tasks, talking in quiet voices. Normal sounds. Normal routines. The video went live at 2147 hours. By 2200, it had 3,000 views. By 2300, 50,000. By midnight, it was trending on every military forum and social media platform. Veterans were sharing it. Active duty personnel were sharing it. Even civilians who'd never set foot on a base were sharing it. The comments section exploded. This is what happens when you judge people by appearance instead of ability. Ghost Viper's student. Holy shit. Those recruits are lucky she showed restraint. Everyone who filmed this harassment should be discharged immediately. This is the kind of soldier we need more of, someone who can endure and still choose patience over revenge. But there were negative comments too. Angry comments from people who insisted Olivia was a plant, a propaganda tool, that her credentials were fabricated to push an agenda. Convenient how she suddenly revealed this secret identity right when it helped her career. If she's so elite, why is she in basic training? This whole thing is staged. Women in combat is still a bad idea. One success story doesn't change biology. Elena found Olivia at 0130 hours sitting outside on the barracks steps watching the night sky. You're trending, Elena said. I saw. How do you feel about it? Tired. That's it, just tired. Olivia looked at her. What do you want me to say? That I'm thrilled thousands of strangers are arguing about whether I deserve respect? That I'm excited to be a symbol instead of a person? I guess not. I did what I needed to do. Now the internet gets to do what it does, dissect, debate, decide. None of that changes who I am or why I'm here. Elena sat down beside her. Sarah came to you. That was brave. It was necessary. She needed to prove to herself that she could make a different choice. You gave her that chance. I gave all of you that chance. Some took it, some didn't. That's how it works. They sat in silence for a while. Then Elena said, What happens now? Now we finish training. I teach what I can. You learn what you can. And in 2 weeks we both move on to whatever comes next. You make it sound simple. It is simple. It's just not easy. The next morning at formation, Patterson addressed the entire base. By now, many of you have seen the video that went viral last night. Some of you are in that video. Some of you participated in creating it. And some of you did nothing while it was happening, which is its own kind of participation. His voice echoed across the training grounds. Recruits stood at attention, barely breathing. Effective immediately, this base operates under a zero-tolerance harassment policy. Anyone found participating in activities that demean, belittle, or harm their fellow recruits will face immediate discharge. No appeals, no second chances. We are here to build soldiers, not bullies. Clear? Yes, sir? Furthermore, I'm announcing a new training initiative. Over the next 2 weeks, all recruits will participate in a seminar on leadership integrity and respect. This seminar will be taught by Mitchell and other instructors with field experience. Attendance is mandatory. Questions. Nobody raised a hand. Good. Dismissed. The crowd dispersed. Elena saw Lance and Madison talking quietly near the equipment shed. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language suggested something had shifted between them, less antagonism, more mutual exhaustion. That afternoon, Olivia stood in front of 40 recruits for the first leadership seminar. "How many of you have been bullied?" she asked. Half the hands went up. Then more. Within seconds, nearly everyone had raised a hand. "How many of you have been the bully?" The hands came down, slowly, reluctantly. Then a few went back up. Then more. By the time everyone was being honest, 35 hands were raised. "That's what I thought," Olivia said. "Because here's the truth, most people aren't purely victims or purely aggressors. Most people exist in the gray space where they've been hurt and they've hurt others, where they've been wronged and they've wronged people. That's human nature. But being a leader means recognizing that pattern and choosing to break it." She walked between the rows. "When I arrived here, some of you saw an easy target, someone who looked weak, someone you could test. And you did test me. You pushed and pushed, waiting for me to break or fight back. But I didn't do either. Do you know why? Because you're trained not to react," someone said. "No, because I wanted to see if you'd learn something about yourselves, if you'd recognize that cruelty is easy and restraint is hard, that hurting someone is simple and building them up takes effort." Lance raised his hand. "What if we didn't learn it? What if we just kept being cruel? Then you'd fail. Not just bootcamp, you'd fail at being the kind of leader people actually want to follow. Because the best leaders aren't the ones who demand respect through fear. They're the ones who earn it through integrity." Madison spoke up without raising her hand. "How do we fix what we did? How do we earn that respect? You don't earn it from me. You earn it from yourselves. By doing better. By being better. By making different choices when the next opportunity comes to tear someone down or build them up." The seminar lasted 2 hours. They talked about power dynamics, about how hierarchies form, about why some people need to dominate others to feel secure. They talked about the difference between confidence and arrogance, between strength and cruelty, between leadership and control. By the end, several recruits were crying. Not from shame, from recognition, from finally seeing patterns they'd been blind to their entire lives. Elena stayed after everyone else had left. That was intense. It needed to be. These are the people who'll lead squads someday, who'll make life or death decisions. They need to understand what drives them before they're in a position where those drives get people killed. Do you think they get it? Some do. Some will. Some never will. That's the reality of teaching. You can't save everyone. But you try anyway. Olivia smiled. I try anyway. That night, Sarah knocked on Olivia's door again. This time she wasn't alone. 5 other recruits stood with her, people who'd participated in the harassment, people who'd stayed silent, people who were trying to figure out how to be better. We wanted to thank you, Sarah said, for not giving up on us, for giving us a chance to fix what we broke. You didn't break anything. You tested something. There's a difference. Still, we're sorry, really sorry. I know. That's why you're here. One of the other recruits, a guy named Martinez, who'd filmed some of the worst footage, stepped forward. I deleted everything, every video, every photo, and I reported the people in that chat to Patterson, the ones who were planning to post more stuff. That took courage. It took shame. I saw myself in that video you edited. Saw how pathetic I looked laughing at someone who was better than me in every way. I don't want to be that person anymore. Then don't be. It's that simple and that complicated. They stood there for a moment, 6 people who'd been complicit in cruelty, trying to figure out how to become people who chose kindness instead. Finally, Martinez said, "If you ever need anything, like anything, you let us know. We owe you." "You don't owe me anything. Just pay it forward. When you see someone being harassed, step in. When you see someone struggling, help. When you have the opportunity to lift someone up or tear them down, choose to lift. That's how you repay me." They left. Elena, who'd been pretending to read in her bunk, looked up. "You're changing them." "They're changing themselves. I'm just providing the framework." "It's more than that. You're showing them a different way to be, a better way." "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just showing them what they already knew but were afraid to act on. Either way, it's working." Olivia lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. "Let's hope it sticks. Because 2 weeks from now, I'm gone, and they'll have to navigate this stuff on their own. They'll remember. You made sure of that. We'll see." But Elena was right. They would remember. Because sometimes the most powerful lessons aren't the ones taught through lectures or demonstrations. They're the ones taught through lived example, by showing people what strength looks like when it's tempered with patience, what power looks like when it's wielded with restraint, what leadership looks like when it's rooted in integrity instead of ego. Olivia had given them that example, had let them test her, break her down, push her to limits they thought would make her crack. And when she'd revealed who she really was, when that tattoo had been exposed and the truth had come out, she hadn't used it as a weapon. She'd used it as a lesson. That was the difference. That was what they'd remember. Not the harassment, not the humiliation, not even the viral video. They'd remember the woman who'd endured everything they threw at her and still chose to teach them instead of punish them. That was the kind of soldier the military needed more of. That was the kind of person everyone needed more of. And as the remaining days of training ticked down toward her departure, Olivia kept teaching, kept showing them, kept proving that the strongest weapon you could ever wield was the choice to use your power for building rather than destroying. The call came on day 17. Olivia was in the middle of demonstrating knife defense techniques when her phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. Finished the demonstration. Corrected Elena's grip on the training blade. Answered 3 questions about proper stance. The phone buzzed again. "Take 5, she told the group and stepped outside. The number was encrypted. Military routing. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Mitchell. It's Reed." Her husband's voice was tight in a way that meant bad news. "We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The kind where someone from your past just resurfaced and is asking questions we can't answer without compromising operational security. How soon can you be at Patterson's office?" 5 minutes. "Make it 3. She hung up. Walked back inside. "Elena, you're running the rest of this session. Review what we covered, then move to live drills. Nobody practices on anyone who isn't comfortable being a target. Clear? Clear. Everything okay? Define okay." Olivia grabbed her jacket. "I'll be back in an hour. Maybe." She made it to Patterson's office in 2.5 minutes. Reed was already there on video conference, his general's uniform crisp even through the slightly pixelated screen. Patterson stood beside the monitor, arms crossed, expression grim. "Someone want to tell me what's happening?" Olivia said. Reed pulled up a photograph. A man in his late 50s, graying hair, sharp eyes, posture that screamed military even in civilian clothes. "You recognize him?" Olivia felt something cold settle in her chest. "Marcus Viper's brother. Daniel Viper. I thought he was dead." "So did we. Turns out he's been living in Eastern Europe for the last 6 years under an assumed identity. He just contacted the Pentagon claiming to have information about his brother's final mission, the one where Marcus died." "What kind of information?" "He says Marcus didn't die in that operation. He says Marcus faked his death and went underground. And he says you helped him do it." Silence filled the office like a physical presence. Patterson spoke first. "Is that true?" Olivia looked at the photograph again. Daniel Viper had the same eyes as his brother, cold, calculating, constantly assessing threats. "What does he want?" "That's not an answer," Patterson said. "It's the only answer you're getting until I know what he wants." Reed leaned forward on screen. "He wants to meet with you. Says he has proof Marcus is alive. Says he'll go public with it unless you agree to a face-to-face conversation. When? 72 hours. Location of his choosing. He'll contact you directly with details. And if I refuse, then he releases whatever information he has to the media. Claims the government covered up Marcus Viper's survival to protect classified operations. It becomes an international incident. Congressional hearings, criminal investigations. Everything you've built here, the respect, the teaching, the example you're setting, it all gets buried under questions about your integrity." Olivia walked to the window, looked out at the training grounds where recruits were running drills, where Lance was helping a younger recruit fix his stance, where Madison was organizing equipment with the kind of care she'd never shown 3 weeks ago. "He's lying," she said quietly. "About what?" Patterson asked. "About having proof. About Marcus being alive. All of it." Daniel hated his brother. Spent 20 years trying to prove Marcus was a war criminal, that his methods were illegal, that he should be court-martialed. When Marcus died, Daniel lost his target. This is just him trying to destroy Marcus's legacy through me. "You sound certain." "I am certain, because I was there when Marcus died. I held pressure on the wound until he stopped breathing. I carried his body out of that compound myself." Reed's voice came through the speakers, careful and measured. "Then why is Daniel claiming otherwise?" "Because he's desperate. Because he spent his entire career in Marcus's shadow and never got the recognition he thought he deserved. Because destroying me is the closest he can get to destroying his brother now." "So we ignore him?" "No, we give him exactly what he wants." Patterson turned from the window. "You want to meet with him?" "I want to end this. Because if we ignore him, he'll escalate. He'll find other ways to attack. Better to confront him directly, let him show his cards and prove he's lying." "That's dangerous," Reed said. "He could be setting a trap." "Of course he's setting a trap. But I've been in worse traps with worse odds, and I've survived all of them." Patterson shook his head. "You've got 11 days left here. 11 days to finish what you started with these recruits. You really want to risk that for a meeting that might be nothing but accusations and conspiracy theories?" "I don't want to risk it. But I can't let someone destroy what Marcus built, what he gave his life for, what he taught me. So yes, I'll meet with Daniel. I'll hear what he has to say. And I'll shut this down before it becomes something bigger." Reed looked at Patterson. Some silent communication passed between them. Then Reed nodded. "All right. We'll arrange security, surveillance, backup protocols. You don't go in there alone. I go in however Daniel wants me to go in. Otherwise he'll know we're prepared and he'll change tactics." "Olivia, this is non-negotiable, Tom. I handle this my way." Reed was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You're as stubborn as your teacher was. That's why he chose me." The video call ended. Patterson poured himself coffee from the pot on his desk, offered one to Olivia. She declined. "You know," Patterson said, "most people would be angry right now. Frustrated. Scared. You're none of those things. I don't have time for feelings that don't serve a purpose." That's a very Marcus Viper philosophy. It's a survival philosophy. Anger clouds judgment. Fear paralyzes action. The only feeling worth having in a situation like this is focus. And you're focused completely. Patterson drank his coffee. For what it's worth, I believe you. About Marcus being dead. About Daniel lying. I've seen enough liars in my career to recognize the pattern. Thank you. But I also think you're walking into something you can't fully control. And control is important to you. Maybe too important. Olivia looked at him. You think I need to let go? I think you need to trust that other people can handle things without you. That the recruits here will continue growing even after you leave. That your husband can protect you without you having to protect yourself. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is accept help, instead of insisting you face everything alone. Did Reed tell you to say that? Reed told me you've been carrying the weight of Marcus's death for 6 years. That you blame yourself for not being fast enough, skilled enough, good enough to save him. That you came here to prove you're more than the weapon he made you. And I'm telling you that you've already proved it. You don't need to face Daniel alone to validate that. This isn't about validation. Isn't it? The question hung in the air. Olivia didn't answer. Just finished her coffee, set the cup down, and walked toward the door. Olivia, Patterson called. Whatever happens in that meeting, you come back. These recruits need you. Not because you're some legendary operator, but because you're showing them how to be better people. Don't throw that away for revenge or closure or whatever Daniel Viper is offering. I'll come back, she said. I always do. But as she walked back to the training facility, she wondered if that was true. If she could come back from confronting the brother of the man who'd defined her entire adult life. If she could face accusations that might reopen wounds she'd spent 6 years trying to heal. Elena was waiting outside the facility. Session's over. Everyone did well. Martinez actually helped Sarah with her footwork instead of mocking her. Progress. That's good. What happened in there? With Patterson? Something from my past. Someone I need to deal with. Need backup? Olivia smiled despite herself. I've got backup. But thank you. You sure because you look like someone just told you the world's ending and you're trying to decide if it's worth saving? Perceptive. I pay attention. You taught me that. They walked toward the barracks. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange. Recruits were finishing evening drills, heading to chow hall, talking and laughing in ways they hadn't 3 weeks ago. Can I ask you something personal? Elena said. You can ask. I might not answer. Why does this place matter to you so much? You've already proved yourself. You've already changed these people's lives. What are you still trying to prove? Olivia stopped walking. You really want to know? I wouldn't ask if I didn't. I'm trying to prove that Marcus was wrong. Wrong about what? He used to say that people don't change, that you are who you are, and training just reveals it rather than creates it. He believed some people were born to be operators, and some people were born to be targets, and no amount of teaching could change that fundamental truth. But you don't believe that. I don't want to believe that. Because if he was right, then everything I'm doing here is pointless. These recruits, Lance Madison, Sarah, all of them, they were cruel. They were bullies. They were everything Marcus said couldn't be changed. But they are changing. I see it every day. Which means Marcus was wrong. Which means maybe I'm not just the weapon he made me. Maybe I'm more than that. Elena was quiet for a moment. What if he wasn't completely wrong? What if people can change, but only if they want to? Only if they choose to? Then I'm teaching them to want to choose differently. And that's why Daniel Viper scares you. Because if he proves Marcus faked his death, if he proves Marcus lied to you about everything, then all the lessons you learned from him are suspect. And everything you're teaching here is built on a foundation that might be false. Olivia looked at her. How did you figure that out? Because I spent 3 weeks watching you, learning how you think. And I know that people like you, people who've been through what you've been through, don't fear death. You fear being wrong about the things you've built your life around. That's terrifying insight for someone your age. My therapist says I'm precocious, also emotionally unavailable. But we're working on it. Olivia laughed. Actually laughed. You're going to be an incredible officer someday. Only if I survive your training first. They reached the barracks. Elena started to head inside, then turned back. Whatever you're dealing with, whoever this person from your past is, you don't have to face it alone. You've spent 3 weeks teaching us that we're stronger together. Maybe it's time you took your own advice. Maybe. That's not a yes. It's the best you're getting. Elena smiled and went inside. Olivia stood there for a moment, watching the lights come on in the barracks, hearing the sounds of people settling in for the night. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. She'd spent 6 years trying to find normal after Marcus died. Trying to figure out who she was when she wasn't hunting targets or completing missions or being the ghost in the machine. Coming here starting over, it had helped. Had given her something Marcus never could. Community. Connection. The chance to teach instead of destroy. And now Daniel Viper wanted to take that away. Wanted to drag her back into the darkness of conspiracy and accusation and doubt. She wouldn't let him. The next morning at formation, Patterson made an announcement. Mitchell will be absent for 3 days starting tomorrow. Personal matter. In her absence, Captain Harrow will oversee advanced training. Any questions? Silence. Then Lance raised his hand. Is she coming back? Yes. You sure? Patterson looked at Lance with something between irritation and understanding. I'm sure. Mitchell doesn't quit. On anything. Ever. Formation dismissed. Lance caught up with Olivia as she headed to the equipment room. Personal matter sounds ominous. It's complicated. Need someone to watch your back. She stopped, looked at him. You're offering to help me. You spent 3 weeks teaching me how to be better. Least I can do is return the favor. I appreciate it, but this is something I need to handle alone. That's what people always say right before things go badly. Speaking from experience, my older brother, he had personal matters, handled them alone, ended up in prison for assault. So yeah, I'm speaking from experience. Olivia softened slightly. I'm not your brother Lance, and I'm trained for situations like this, but I appreciate your concern. It means you're learning. Learning what? That offering help isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you can do. He nodded slowly. Just be careful, okay? These recruits need you. I need you. Not because you're some legendary operator, but because you're the first person who ever treated me like I could be better than my worst impulses. You are better than your worst impulses. You proved that. I'm trying, but it's hard, and having you here makes it easier. I'll be back. 3 days. That's all. Promise. I promise. But as she walked away, she wondered if that was a promise she could keep. That night, Daniel Viper's message came through on her encrypted phone. The meeting location. The time. The rules. Come alone. No weapons, no surveillance. Just you and me and the truth about your teacher. Olivia read it 3 times. Then she called Reed. I've got the details. Slovenia. Abandoned industrial complex outside Ljubljana. 48 hours from now. I don't like it. You don't have to like it. You just have to trust me. I do trust you. But I also know Daniel Viper's reputation. He's been trying to destroy his brother's legacy for decades. If he thinks you're the key to doing that, he won't stop until he's broken you. Then he's going to be disappointed. Because I've been broken before, by people who are much better at it than he is, and I'm still here. Reed sighed. I'll have a team positioned 3 miles out. If things go south, you signal, and they extract you within 10 minutes. No team. Olivia, no team. If Daniel sees surveillance, he'll disappear. And next time he surfaces, it'll be in front of Congress or the media. I can't let that happen. Marcus deserves better. Marcus is dead. His legacy isn't, and that's what I'm protecting. Silence on the other end. Then Reed said quietly, "Come home safe. Please." I always do. You keep saying that. One of these days it might not be true. Then I'll die doing something that matters. Same as Marcus. Same as every operator who's ever put on the uniform. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be honest. They talked for another 10 minutes. Logistics, backup plans, emergency protocols, all the things soldiers talked about before walking into potential danger. When they hung up, Olivia sat alone in the darkness of the barracks and thought about Marcus Viper. She'd met him 8 years ago. 22 years old, fresh out of Special Forces selection, cocky and stupid, and convinced she was invincible. He'd taken one look at her and said, "You're going to get yourself killed within 6 months. Come with me, and I'll teach you how to live longer." She'd followed him. For 6 years. Through operations that had no official records in countries the government denied being, in doing things that would never be acknowledged or decorated or even mentioned in history books. He'd been brutal, demanding, impossible to satisfy. Every mission that succeeded should have been better. Every skill she mastered had 10 more waiting behind it. He pushed her past limits she didn't know she had, then pushed her past those limits too. But he'd also saved her life. 17 times by her count. Had taken bullets meant for her, had pulled her out of buildings seconds before they exploded, had talked her through injuries that should have killed her. And when he'd died, when that operation in Syria had gone catastrophically wrong, she'd held his hand while he bled out and promised she'd carry on what he'd taught her. That promise had defined everything since. Coming to Bootcamp, teaching recruits, showing them a different way. All of it was her attempt to honor that promise while also proving that Marcus's methods, his beliefs about human nature, weren't the only path forward. Now Daniel wanted to claim Marcus had faked his death, had abandoned her, had been lying about everything. She wouldn't let that stand. Couldn't let that stand. Even if it meant walking into a trap, even if it meant risking everything she'd built here. Because some things were worth fighting for. And Marcus Viper's legacy, complicated and brutal and difficult as it was, deserved to be protected from the lies of a jealous brother who'd never understood what it meant to sacrifice everything for something bigger than yourself. She packed her bag that night. Minimal gear, civilian clothes, nothing that would draw attention. Elena found her at 0200 hours, sitting on her bunk in the darkness. "Couldn't sleep either," Elena whispered. "Sleep is overrated. That's what insomniacs always say." Elena sat down on the opposite bunk. "You're going to do something dangerous, aren't you? Define dangerous. The kind where you might not come back." Olivia was quiet for a moment. "I'm going to confront someone who wants to destroy everything I care about. So yes, dangerous is accurate. Can I talk you out of it? No. Can I come with you? Also no. Then can I at least say that you've changed my life, that watching you survive 3 weeks of harassment with grace and patience taught me more about strength than any combat training ever could, and that if something happens to you, I want you to know you mattered. To me. To everyone here." Olivia felt something tighten in her chest. "Thank you." That's it. Just thank you. What else do you want me to say? Tell me you'll be careful. Tell me you'll come back. Tell me this isn't the last conversation we have. I'll be careful. I'll come back. And this isn't the last conversation we have. Promise. I promise. Elena stood up, walked to the door, then turned back. You know what Marcus Viper got wrong? He thought people were fixed, that you couldn't change fundamental nature. But you proved him wrong. You changed us, all of us. So maybe give yourself permission to change too. To be more than the weapon he made you. To come back from this meeting and let yourself have a normal life instead of constantly testing yourself against impossible standards. You're very wise for someone so young. My therapist gets the credit. Also you. Mostly you. She left. Olivia sat alone in the darkness and thought about change. About whether people really could become something other than what they'd been made to be. She'd find out in 48 hours. Either way, she wasn't backing down. Wasn't letting Daniel Viper win. Marcus had taught her many things. But the most important lesson was this: when someone threatens what you love, you don't negotiate. You don't compromise. You end the threat. Completely. Permanently. And that's exactly what she planned to do. The flight to Slovenia took 14 hours with 2 layovers. Olivia spent most of it reviewing everything she knew about Daniel Viper. Former Army intelligence. Spent 20 years in analysis and counterintelligence. Brilliant mind, terrible field instincts. Had tried 3 times to join Special Forces and washed out every time. Blamed his brother for poisoning his reputation for making commanders think he was too soft, too academic, too worried about rules. Marcus had never talked about Daniel much. The few times Olivia had asked Marcus would just shake his head and say, "Family talk is complicated. Blood doesn't make you loyal. Sometimes it just makes you dangerous." She understood that better now. The industrial complex was exactly as described, abandoned rusting, surrounded by overgrown vegetation and chain-link fence with holes big enough to walk through. No security. No signs of life. Just empty buildings and broken windows, and the kind of silence that made your instincts scream. Olivia arrived 30 minutes early, swept the perimeter, checked for surveillance equipment, tripwires, pressure plates, anything that suggested this was more than just a meeting. Found nothing, which either meant Daniel was being honest or he was better at this than his record suggested. She positioned herself in the main warehouse, back to a concrete pillar, clear sightlines to all 3 entrances. No weapons like Daniel had requested. But she didn't need weapons. Marcus had taught her that her body was a weapon, and everything else was just an extension of intention. Daniel Viper walked through the east entrance at exactly 1400 hours. He looked older than his photograph. Grayer. Thinner. But his eyes were the same as Marcus's sharp, calculating, missing nothing. He stopped 20 feet away, hands visible, posture, non-threatening. "Olivia Mitchell, the famous last student. Marcus talked about you constantly. You spoke to your brother before he died?" "No, but I read his journals, all 15 years worth. Amazing what you find when you break into someone's storage unit. Breaking and entering, that's a felony. So is faking your death and continuing black ops missions under false pretenses. But we're not here to talk about legalities, are we?" Olivia stayed perfectly still. "Say what you came to say." Daniel pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, turned it to face her. "These are satellite photos, taken 8 months ago in Belarus. That's Marcus. Very much alive." The image showed a man in civilian clothes, gray hair, lean build, walking through a market. The face was partially obscured, but the gait was familiar. The posture, the way he scanned for threats. "That could be anyone," Olivia said. "Could be. Let me show you another. He swiped. New image. Same man, clearer angle. And another. Swipe. And another. Swipe. I've got 37 photographs over a 6-month period, all showing Marcus Viper alive and operational 18 months after his supposed death. Olivia's chest felt tight. You doctored these? No, I didn't. But I understand why you'd think that. So let me show you something else. He pulled out a small recorder. Hit play. A voice crackled through the speaker, rough, familiar, unmistakably Marcus. Daniel, if you're hearing this, I'm already gone. Really gone this time. And you're probably trying to use my death to destroy everything I built. Don't. Olivia Mitchell is the best operator I ever trained. She deserves better than being caught in our family's dysfunction. Let her go. Let this go. Some wars aren't worth fighting. The recording ended. Silence filled the warehouse. Olivia's voice came out quieter than she intended. When was that recorded? 3 weeks ago. I received it in the mail with no return address. Just this message and a note that said, if I pursued this, I'd regret it. Then why are you here? Why pursue it? Daniel's expression shifted. Something harder. Angrier. Because my brother spent his entire life making me feel inadequate. Like I wasn't enough. Wasn't tough enough, smart enough, ruthless enough. He faked his death and let everyone believe he was a hero. And now I find out he survived, kept operating, and still didn't have the decency to contact me, his own brother. So this is about revenge. This is about truth, about not letting him control the narrative even from beyond the grave, or whatever the hell he's doing now. Olivia took 3 steps forward. You want the truth? Here it is. Marcus died in Syria. I was there. I felt his pulse stop. I carried his body out myself. Whatever you think these photos show, whatever you think that recording proves, it's wrong. Someone is manipulating you, using your anger against Marcus to create chaos. Why would someone do that? Because Marcus had enemies, lots of them. People he stopped operations, he disrupted networks, he dismantled. Any one of them would love to destabilize his legacy, create doubt, make people question whether his missions were legitimate. Daniel studied her. You really believe he's dead? I know he's dead. Then explain the photos. Explain the recording. I can't. Not yet, but I will. Give me those files. Let me investigate. If Marcus is somehow alive, I'll find him. And if someone's using his image to create problems, I'll stop them. Why should I trust you? Because you don't have another option. You go public with this, it becomes a media circus. Congressional hearings, intelligence agencies claiming national security concerns. Everything gets buried under classified stamps and you never get answers. But if you work with me, I can find the truth. Whatever it is. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Marcus really never mentioned me. He mentioned you once, said family was the hardest mission anyone ever faced, that loving someone who resented you was like carrying a knife that kept cutting you even when you weren't holding it. That sounds like him. Philosophical even when he was being cruel. He wasn't trying to be cruel. He just didn't know how to connect with people who weren't operators, who didn't live the way he lived. And you? Do you know how to connect with normal people? Or are you just another version of my brother, brilliant at war, terrible at everything else? Olivia thought about the recruits, about Elena and Lance and Madison and Sarah, and about 3 weeks of teaching them that strength came from restraint, that power came from choosing not to use it. I'm learning, she said. Marcus taught me how to fight, but someone else is teaching me how to live. And those are different skills. Daniel handed her the tablet. Everything's on there. Photos, metadata, the recording. If you find proof he's alive, you tell me first. Before the government. Before anyone else. Deal. Deal. And if you find proof he's dead, proof, I can accept you tell me that too. Because I need to know. I need to stop wondering if he's out there somewhere, thinking I wasn't worth saying goodbye to. I'll find the truth. Whatever it is. Daniel turned to leave. Stopped. Looked back. He was my brother. I hated him. But I also... He stopped. Started again. Just find the truth. That's all I want. Then he was gone. Olivia stood alone in the warehouse, holding a tablet full of impossible images and a recording of a dead man's voice. Her hands were shaking. She made them stop. Then she pulled out her phone and called Reed. I need a full analysis team. Photo forensics, voice analysis, metadata examination, everything. And I need it yesterday. What did Daniel show you? Something that's either going to change everything or prove that someone's very good at manipulation. Either way, I need answers. Fast. She flew back to base that night, arrived at 0400 hours, went straight to her bunk without talking to anyone. Elena stirred when she came in. You're back. I'm back. Everything okay? Define okay. Are you hurt? Are you in trouble? Are we safe? Olivia sat down on her bunk. Yes, no, and yes, in that order. That's not reassuring. It's honest? Elena sat up. Whatever happened out there, you look different. Shaken. I've never seen you shaken. I'm not shaken. I'm processing. Processing what? Information that doesn't make sense. Evidence that contradicts what I know to be true. The possibility that everything I've believed for 6 years might be wrong. About your teacher, about Marcus. About everything. Elena came over, sat beside her. You want to talk about it? I can't. Classified. Then talk around it. Tell me what you're feeling without telling me the details. Olivia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, what if the person who defined your entire life, who saved you, trained you, made you who you are, what if they lied to you about the most fundamental thing? What if everything you thought you knew was wrong? Then you'd still be you, the person who survived 3 weeks of harassment with grace, who taught 40 recruits how to be better people, who kept promises even when it was hard. Your teacher might have shaped you, but you're more than what they made you. You proved that here. Did I, or am I just repeating patterns Marcus taught me? Being patient because he taught patience, showing restraint because he taught restraint. What if I'm not actually choosing anything, just following programming? That's not programming. That's learning. Everyone learns from someone. But what you do with those lessons, how you adapt them, change them, make them your own, that's choice. That's you. Olivia looked at her. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher. They sat in silence. Outside the base was starting to wake up. Early risers heading to PT. Kitchen staff preparing breakfast. The normal rhythm of military life. What are you going to do? Elena asked. Find the truth. Whatever it costs. And if the truth is worse than the lie, then I'll deal with it. Same as I deal with everything else. Alone. Olivia smiled slightly. You're persistent. You taught me that too. Morning formation. Patterson looked at Olivia, and something unspoken passed between them. He knew. Reed had briefed him. This was bigger than anyone had anticipated. After formation, Patterson pulled her aside. Reed sent the preliminary analysis. Photo experts say the images are authentic, not doctored, not manipulated. Those are real photographs of someone who looks exactly like Marcus Viper. Looks like isn't the same as is. Voice analysis on the recording shows 93% probability it's actually Marcus. Vocal patterns, cadence, linguistic markers all match. Olivia felt something cold settle in her stomach. That's not possible. That's what the data says. But there's more. They pulled metadata from the photos, cross-referenced with known intelligence operations in Belarus during that time frame. There was a black ops mission, unsanctioned, someone operating without official approval disrupting a weapons network. Could have been Marcus, could have been someone else, but the timeline matches. What does Reed want me to do? He wants you to finish your training cycle here. Keep teaching. Keep being the example these recruits need. Let the intelligence community handle the investigation. That's not going to happen. I know. That's why he sent me to convince you, which we both know won't work. So instead I'm asking, what's your plan? Olivia pulled out the tablet Daniel had given her. I'm going to trace every photo, every location, every timeline. I'm going to find out who took these images and why. And I'm going to prove either that Marcus is alive or that someone's using his ghost to manipulate his brother. And if you prove he's alive, what then? Then I find him, and I ask him why he let me believe he was dead for 6 years. Patterson nodded slowly. You've got 8 days left here. Use them wisely, because whatever you find at the end of this investigation, you're going to need the foundation you built here to survive it. The next week was the hardest of Olivia's life. Days she taught, ran training sessions, demonstrated techniques, answered questions, showed 40 recruits that leadership meant serving others before yourself. Nights she investigated, traced photo locations, cross-referenced intelligence reports, contacted old sources from her operational days, pulled threads until patterns emerged. Elena watched her wear herself down. You need to sleep. Sleep is optional. No, it's not. You're running yourself into the ground. I've operated on less sleep with worse conditions. That doesn't make it healthy. That makes it traumatic survival behavior that you've normalized. Olivia looked up from her laptop. You're doing the therapist thing again. Someone has to. You won't take care of yourself. I'll rest when this is finished. And when will it be finished? When you've proven Marcus is dead, or when you've proven he's alive, or when you've chased every lead into dead ends and still don't have answers. There's no finish line here, Olivia. Just more questions. Then I'll keep asking until the questions stop. Elena sat down beside her. What are you really afraid of? Nothing. Try again. This time with honesty. Olivia closed the laptop, looked at her hands. I'm afraid that Marcus is alive, that he let me grieve him for 6 years while he kept operating, that everything he taught me about loyalty and sacrifice and commitment was a lie. Because if that's true, then what does that make me? What does that make everything I've done in his name? It makes you someone who honored what she thought was true, who built meaning from loss, who became more than what her teacher made her. That doesn't change just because the circumstances change. Doesn't it? No. Because you're not Marcus. You're not even Marcus's student anymore. You're Olivia Mitchell, the woman who survived harassment with patience, who taught bullies to be better people, who showed 40 recruits that strength comes from restraint. That's who you are. With or without Marcus. Alive or dead. Olivia felt something break inside her chest. Something that had been holding tight for 6 years. She didn't cry. Didn't break down. Just sat there feeling the weight of Elena's words settle into truth. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For reminding me who I am. On the 7th night, Olivia found the answer. It came from a contact in Belarus, former intelligence asset who owed her a favor from an operation 3 years ago. He'd tracked down the photographer who'd taken the images Daniel had shown her. The photographer was former KGB, worked freelance, now specialized in creating false identities, fake documentation, manufactured evidence. He'd been hired 8 months ago to take photographs of a man who'd been surgically altered to look like Marcus Viper. Paid in cryptocurrency. Instructions delivered through encrypted channels. No way to trace who'd hired him. But there was one detail. One small piece of information that changed everything. The man in the photographs had a scar on his left hand, 3 inches long, running from thumb to wrist. Marcus had never had that scar. Olivia had seen his hands 1,000 times, held them, watched them work, knew every mark, every callus, every imperfection. The man in the photos wasn't Marcus, was never Marcus, was just someone's attempt to resurrect a ghost and use it as a weapon against his legacy. Olivia called Daniel that night. "I found your answer. Marcus is dead. The photos are fake. Someone hired a professional to create a Marcus look-alike and photograph him in locations that would seem legitimate. Voice recording was probably synthesized using old audio samples. It's sophisticated, but it's false." Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "Can you prove it? I can prove the photographs are staged. I can prove the photographer was hired specifically for this job. I can show you the inconsistencies in the images that confirm they're manufactured. Will that be enough?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably. I wanted him to be alive. Even though I hated him. I wanted one more chance to tell him he was wrong about me. That I was worth something." "You are worth something. You don't need Marcus to validate that." "Easy for you to say. He validated you. He trained you. He made you into something legendary." "No. He trained me. But I made myself into something more than what he intended. Just like you can. The question is whether you'll spend the rest of your life chasing his ghost or building your own legacy." Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Thank you for finding the truth, for not lying to me to make it easier." "I don't lie. Marcus taught me that. It's one of the few lessons I'm keeping." They hung up. Olivia sat alone in the darkness and felt something she hadn't felt in 6 years. Relief. Marcus was dead. Had died honestly. Had taught her honestly. Everything she'd built on his foundation was real, was solid, was worth continuing. She could let him go now. Could stop carrying his ghost on her back. Could become fully herself instead of always being Marcus Viper's final student. The last day of training came faster than anyone expected. 40 recruits stood at formation. Olivia stood beside Patterson and Harrow, watching them with something close to pride. They'd changed. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough. Lance stood straighter, helped others without being asked. Madison led without demanding. Sarah spoke up when she saw injustice. Elena organized. Martinez protected. Chen taught. They'd become the kind of soldiers the military needed. The kind who understood that strength without compassion was just cruelty. That power without restraint was just violence. That leadership meant serving others before yourself. Patterson addressed them one final time. "You came here as recruits. You're leaving as soldiers. Some of you struggled. Some of you failed. Some of you did things you're not proud of. But all of you learned. All of you grew. And all of you proved that people can change if they choose to. That's the lesson Mitchell taught you. Don't forget it." Formation dismissed. Recruits dispersed slowly, some heading to new assignments, some staying for advanced training. Elena found Olivia by the equipment shed. "So this is it. You're leaving." "My husband's outside. We're heading home tonight." "Where's home?" "Wherever we decide it is. That's the nice thing about finishing a mission, you get to choose what comes next." "What will you choose?" Olivia smiled. "I don't know yet. Maybe teach at a tactics school. Maybe consult on training programs. Maybe just be a normal person for a while and figure out who that is." "You'll never be normal." "No. But I can be happy. That's better than normal." Elena hugged her. Olivia stiffened for a second. Physical affection still felt strange after years of tactical distance, then relaxed into it. "Thank you," Elena whispered, "for everything. Thank you for reminding me that teaching matters, that changing lives matters, that being more than a weapon is possible." They separated. Elena wiped her eyes. "Don't be a stranger." "I won't. And when you make officer, because you will remember what you learned here. Pass it forward. Teach others that strength comes from restraint." "I will. I promise." Olivia walked toward the main gate where a familiar truck was parked. General Thomas Reed stood beside it, out of uniform, looking like any other husband waiting for his wife. When he saw her, he smiled. "Ready to go home?" "More than ready. How do you feel?" "Free. For the first time in 6 years, I feel free." They got in the truck. As they drove away from the base, Olivia looked back one last time, saw recruits training, saw instructors teaching, saw the normal rhythm of military life continuing without her. It was perfect. It was right. She'd come here to prove Marcus wrong, to prove that people could change, that cruelty could become compassion, that bullies could become leaders. And she'd succeeded. Not because she'd punished anyone, not because she'd used her skills to dominate or intimidate, but because she'd chosen patience over revenge, restraint over retaliation, teaching over destroying. Marcus had taught her how to be a weapon. These 3 weeks had taught her how to be human. And as the base disappeared behind them, as Reed reached over and took her hand, as she felt herself settle into a future that wasn't defined by missions or targets or ghost identities, Olivia finally understood the most important lesson of all. The strongest weapon you could ever wield wasn't violence or skill or tactical superiority. It was the choice to use your power for building instead of destroying, for teaching instead of punishing, for showing people what they could become instead of trapping them in what they'd been. That was Marcus's real legacy, not the operations he'd completed or the enemies he'd neutralized, but the student he'd trained who'd taken his lessons and transformed them into something better, something human, something kind, something that made the world safer, not through elimination, but through elevation. Olivia Mitchell had been mocked, harassed, tested, and pushed to her limits. And she'd responded not with the violence she'd been trained for, but with the patience she'd chosen instead. That choice had changed 40 lives, had transformed bullies into leaders, had proved that respect earned through integrity lasted longer than respect demanded through fear. And now, driving away from the base with her husband beside her and her future stretching open and undefined ahead, Olivia finally allowed herself to believe what Elena had told her weeks ago. She wasn't just Marcus Viper's weapon anymore. She was Olivia Mitchell. Wife, teacher, survivor, human. And that was more than enough.